But yeah, it's funny when it's just because like when you yeah, it's funny. Anyway, so we got to do this more often. I can tell this is gonna be fun. We got the set design. You guys did a great job. I was not thinking of using the flowers.
Picked random crap around.
But yeah, I mean, this is what we do. We just make stuff up,
make it work
pretty much just as we go. Like I bought these today. You know, I was just like, oh wait, we could do this. We just
even match flowers and flowers.
Oh yeah, flower tie, flower pots. It's like God was just designing this to happen.
There we go.
So anyway, we are doing this. We're just test running this. There's so many things that we want to talk about that I want to talk about. I
just got words.
I
just got kidnapped.
There's lots of things that I'm very interested in talking about that wanting to stay faithful to the text we're going through John, we can't really talk about because you're not going to want to insert things into a text in scripture. It's just not healthy hermeneutics. It's not healthy exegesis. So I just reached out to David today and was like, hey, we want to test this. And he's like, okay, sure. I think David's kind of just down for anything. He's my yes man pretty much. So we're just running this. We got some, a setup going. We got CJ behind the mic or behind the camera. So we're super excited. Before we hop in, I think everybody kind of knows me. I'm kind of running everything. I've been on camera pretty much most of the time. So
almost every single time.
Almost every single time. So I think what I'd love to do is kind of introduce the audience to you. You're not really a social media kind of guy, so it's hard to tag you and stuff.
I don't do nothing.
Which I respect. I deleted some social media in the last couple of weeks, but it's hard to tag you. So I'd love to just kind of get to know you. Let the audience get to know you. So, am I introducing yourself?
Well, he kind of already said my name. I'm David. If the shirt means nothing, I'm graduating in Little Miami. I don't know. We just going through life, getting through all the different things, and it's a busy schedule, but we're working through it.
Yeah. What do you want to do when you graduate?
When I graduate high school?
Yeah.
Well, the current plan is college, going to get electrical engineering and creative media design, something like that. I don't know. It's still figured out as we go. That's kind of how it is. I make it up as I go. And then from there, I've just been trying to let it go and let God he'll take me where he needs to go after that.
You want to kind of tell us about your history in serving and ministry, stuff like that?
Sure. So I completely grew up in the church. Even when I was younger, my mom was an admin at one of our older churches. So I was there all the time. Great friends with the janitors. That janitor was so cool. But then baptized when I was 8, I think. No, I was 6. Dude, I was so young. Holy cow. There's definitely been some journey and a lack of understanding in a lot of that, which has really matured, I think, in kind of my high school years. Thanks, Joel Montgomery.
Yeah, shout out Joel, our guy.
He preaches hard sometimes.
He
goes good.
He's great.
But a lot of that changed. Got baptized again in 2023? No, 2024. I should probably remember that.
It was last summer. It was last summer for sure.
It was, because it was our last Super Bowl of baptisms. It was the fourth service baptism before there was a fourth service.
That's true. It was after
because
was it Super Bowl or was it over?
Yeah, it was the Super Bowl baptisms thing because I was doing camera during that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, started serving in the tail end of 6th grade, I think, and have just kind of been gung-ho about it since. Started an internship at the church, and it's been a lot of fun. Definitely leads to some interesting moments, getting baptized while, after having spent a busy day, but it's a lot of fun. It gets, it's enjoyable, lets me see some cool stuff, and means I don't have to be one, in front of the camera typically. Typically, I'm in CJ's spot, and I like it that way.
Yeah. So, you and I are pretty much the main leads of Logos. We have some other associate leads, we'll call them. Not to degrade them, but just they're not here as often. But
schedules got a little bit.
Schedules get crazy. Schedules get crazy for sure. What really made you want to kind of partner up with me for doing Logos, and especially as a leader?
Well, some evening, I got a text from Ben. It was like, hey, you want to do this thing? And I'm like, you know what? Sure.
Yeah.
But on a more kind of legitimate sense, this kind of thing, maybe not quite in this specific format, but I'm totally enjoying this format, was something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Something that our church is great about is getting new people in and getting getting people in that door and kind of helping get that seed planted, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It can sometimes detract from some of the group, and it's a balance. And so it's the trying to then encourage into some of that, dive deeper with people that are more willing and more wanting to properly go in and focus and have a good, proper conversation. And
Yeah. So I met David. I met you probably 3 years ago. When I was
probably
like 3 years ago, my freshman year. And David and I got really close as I started serving on worship team at my church. And we were serving at a Christmas service, and we spent how many services we had? Like probably 12 individual
9,
services.
I think.
9, and then plus the rehearsals. So needless to say, we spent a lot of time together.
9 services.
Was it 9?
Easily plenty of rehearsals.
Right. And so we were just kind of talking, and we kind of struck up a conversation about how we wanted to start doing a Bible study. And this was 2 years ago, so it took a while.
Yeah, that one kind of just fell
That
flat,
one fell apart. We didn't really get it together. But then I was like, hey, we want to talk about this. So I reached out to him because I've always wanted to do ministry stuff, and I was coming to a crossroads this fall about whether I wanted to pursue ministry like hard or whether I wanted to just kind of keep doing what I was doing. And I felt like the Lord was just calling me like, hey, this is where I want you to be. And I felt ready to kind of step into that. Of course, no one's prepared to follow the Lord in some cases, but he's certainly blessed it. And so I reached out to David because I knew David's just kind of, easygoing, but also you're really committed when you commit to something, which I appreciate. And so we got this going. And I knew that I could trust David to be not only sound theologically, but also like, he's my camera guy, right? He's my tech guy. He set up the camera and the mics because I don't know how to do that. As much as I have a musical background, as much as I'm around, David's a tech guy. He runs tech at the church. He runs sound at the church. Like, he's my guy, so I knew I could trust him. And I really appreciate you.
Half of it's figured out as you go. You make it work.
Yeah, we kind of just make stuff up. If you watch regularly, you'll notice that the camera angle changes every single study because I refuse to be consistent in where I stand. I think it gets boring. I got to mix it up. And if you have different people here, you kind of want to bounce it around to fit different crowds.
And the way we have to make shift those tripods is
yes,
like 3 different boxes and like a notebook. We
used to have to stack crates on top of each other and then put a handheld until CJ, our guy, was like, hey, I have a 4 feet tall tripod that you guys can just use. And I was like, oh, okay.
And I totally forgot that I have a tripod of my own that I totally could do.
So David's falling through. But that, and then Israel, our other lead, although he's not here tonight, was kind enough to buy the lectern, the podium, because I was using one of these, like stacked on top of
2 or 3 of them, I think.
Well, I think I was using this stacked on top of a side table that's out there in the lobby. So that was.
You make it work. Improvisation goes crazy.
Make it work.
Fun. Yeah.
The Lord provides. So although you are typically the tech guy, you have taught
once before, I think.
You have taught once. You taught on the Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Kind of stepping out of your comfort zone, and
definitely a bit of stepping out of comfort zone, especially with that week was a not great timing because I had like a bunch of stuff all at once. So I was like totally going into it not quite as prepared as I would fully liked. But that's honestly, it's kind of a learning experience, just helping me understand what are some of my things that I need when I'm going up and actually going to talk and understand. Because I had a lot of thoughts and stuff, but then it's verbalizing that in ways that actually make sense into strings of words that other people can understand and not stumble over everything.
Right. And you've spoken at tribes as well because you're a nation leader. Is it Yellow Nation?
A couple times. Excuse me?
That is
the very wrong nation right there. Green Nation.
Green Nation, sorry. I'm in Blue Nation, so we're just better than you.
Still the wrong nation, but that's okay.
But you've spoken at Nation Night, and I do believe that was like the same week. It was like a
Yes,
Monday and then a
it
Wednesday.
was-
Wednesday.
Well, I think it was Wednesday, then Monday. and-
Okay. So how did that kind of, was it similar? Did it like help? Did it translate? Or was it just completely polar opposites? Just like,
I actually don't remember which one was first, but that's unimportant. The Wednesday actually, especially, it was a big contrast there because Monday I felt a little underprepared, partially because I prepared well for Wednesday because I don't know, I felt more pressure with that or something. I don't know. The brain decides its things.
right.
But there I learned a couple of techniques and figured out some couple of things that work well for me. And honestly, I think most of it was God was just like, I got you. And he kind of helped me through it because
For sure.
public speaking is not my go-to, not the greatest at it.
Are you a notes guy when you speak?
It depends. I think that Wednesday, what I kind of did was I wrote out all of my thoughts then I had on my laptop. I supersized it so that I can more easily keep track of it. And then I had a script that I had available and kind of had some of those thoughts and some of the specific phrasings. There's certain times you have like a very specific phrasing that you want to hit, especially when you're kind of more preaching than less the teaching.
Sure.
And that kind of helps me maintain a lot more track of my thoughts and maintain that schedule and whatnot.
Yeah, when I started the first couple weeks,
Yeah, you just hear raw dog in it. You just go.
yeah. So the first couple, the first couple weeks we were doing this, I didn't use notes because we were talking. It's the Gospel of John, and John chapter 1 especially is something that I'm very familiar with. That's why I chose the Gospel of John. John 1:1. You know, I did talk for an hour on John 1:1. We were going for a while. And that was no notes because I knew it. But as we've kind of gotten further in and, you know, I really had a good routine of you'd talk on Monday and then Tuesday I'd go do other stuff. And then Wednesday I'd serve at church. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'd prep. And then Monday you'd speak, you take 2 days and you prep. And I've kind of fallen behind on that, to be honest. I'm kind of just taking Saturday, Sunday to prep. So it's 2 days. So I have a lot of time to memorize it. And so I've tried to adopted notes, but also, you know, I'm finding that as I'm using notes, and it's weird because I used to be a guy who would write out every single word, and basically I would just read, not because I couldn't think like on the spot, but just because I wanted to like get everything perfect. I wanted to think, and I wanted to just read it straight out. But then I went from that to no notes, and that was a crazy transition because now it's just and I wanted to be more conversational, like you're engaging the room and talking to them. And now I think I found that happy medium where I can hit every point I want to, but still be spontaneous. You know, like tonight, the example of the guy who's trying to figure out how to live forever, by like gene therapy or whatever, that just came to me. But like because my notes are kind of the way they are, I think I found a sweet spot where like I'll hit my major points, I'll write them all out, and then I'll just kind of, you know, free ball in between. You just, you know, if the Holy Spirit is like putting something on the mind, share it. If there's a scripture that comes to mind, share it. If there's a story, an anecdote that comes to mind, share it. But yeah,
I'd say it's been going well.
Yeah, it's been really good. You've only taught once.
Yeah.
Will you be doing it again?
Got 1 or 2 weeks that I got to be looking at. Do some kind of prep work of my own. Look at seeing how well I think my understanding will go, because there's a lot more foundation I think you've got in some of the more, I would say, advanced theological concepts that I haven't quite fully grasped yet. Like some of those terms you drop, I'm like, what is that? I thought I had a decent vocabulary and I got no clue.
I owe it all. There's tons of resources that I've been gifted. My uncle specifically has gifted me a lot of resources that I've been reading through that are just Gospel John oriented. That's been really helpful. I like to keep it like grounded. You know, I'm a big gesticulator, big hands talker kind of guy. But no, I like to keep it grounded. But also, you know, I want to branch out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to have you teach again. I haven't made any shorts yet of your one.
You don't need to. It's fine.
It's fine. They're coming. Don't worry. They might come in like August. I'm so far. So for anyone, I haven't told anybody this yet, except for people who are at the study. I am currently working on transcribing all of the studies and then adding additional commentary into a book that's going to just be the Logos Christian Fellowship commentary on the Gospel of John. And I'm going to get it printed and published, and we're going to try to hand them out and maybe sell a couple so I can make up the hundreds of dollars I'm going to spend on getting it printed. But we are now in week 19 or 20 of our study, which is crazy to think of. Like, it's gone by quick. And I was even thinking about like, oh, do I want to start it in the new year? Do I really want to start it like because it was rough. We started it in November, and then we had Thanksgiving, and then Christmas break, and then New Year's when I was out of town. And then we got a snow day. So we had a couple weeks where we just weren't here. But now we're in like week 20, and it's crazy. But I haven't even finished the second study of getting it written down. So I am a solid like 5% into the material, and we're only going quicker and quicker and I'm trying to add Saturdays and like get extras. It's like it's crazy. But I don't know why was I talking about a book?
That's a good question.
Teaching. We were making shorts. Yeah. The shorts are new. My dad recommended I make shorts. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I
get some good points.
Made some shorts. But I'll get some of you. Certainly.
You don't have to.
Well, I want to share the love. I want to share because Israel has 2 videos. He has his one on Psalm like 12, and then he has the teaching, and then you have just one, and I have the other like 24 plus the other short. So I feel like I'm hogging. I gotta share the love a little bit.
Or not.
Well, you're in this.
Yeah,
you're in this. So this guy, you'll be my podcast host.
You got me in the podcast.
Got him in the podcast. This is fun. I enjoy this. This is nice. Last thing about you before we hop into the audience questions. There's only one.
Only one.
But last thing about you.
All right.
Over the years and recently, what do you think has been the biggest theological or spiritual kind of development or growth that you've seen?
Like, are we talking to myself or just in general?
Just, we'll break it down. So what is kind of a theological point that you kind of were wrestling with, and then you went, like, you feel like you understand it, and like that kind of like blew your mind? And then what's just a spiritual truth that you've just been like walking in recently?
Well, I'm going to kind of slightly generalize something that there's been a couple of topics that honestly I'm still diving into, and there's still a couple of points that I'm not quite sure about, but that it's been a really interesting process. A few different verses that were just like really weighing on me until like January, like 2 years ago, where I went into like a mad typing rush, wrote like 3-4 pages, connecting it all together, and then that expanded into like 2 separate sermons to potentially like a whole series. It's been a thing. But the one that has been really most interesting is where I've been trying to do a deep dive into understanding God as a refiner, and just that understanding into how God will test us and kind of purify us through our struggles and like temptation. There's a lot of aspects in that, because it's really that deep dive and understanding into like, why do we have to struggle? And that isn't necessarily an easy topic. And it's been incredibly interesting going in through that. And there's been both a lot of questions answered, and then a lot of questions that I've had to ponder and start and keep searching through.
For sure. You've been working on that refiner series, I guess we'll call it, like collection of talks.
I think then the other one's Iron Sharpens Iron.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing about looking at the Bible in context is the whole overall. That then it's just been sitting in my back pocket for a little bit as I work on it.
Yeah. Do you have plans for that? Are you bringing it here for like a Saturday, or are you going to bring it to Tribes for a Wednesday, or what's
I honestly got no clue. I've had some conversations with Joel that maybe it goes on at Tribes, maybe it turns into something here. It kind of it depends, and honestly, maybe it just goes nowhere, and then I have it as a lot of questions answered for myself and more understood, and all of this topic, preparing and talking into like a context of like I'm preaching, so to say, has like forced me to go into a much deeper and more proper, solid understanding and making sure that I can fully comprehend, understand it. I think it may almost be so that subconscious. I forget the verse, but where those who preach the gospel are then held to that higher standard.
I think you're thinking of James. James says, "Do not all be teachers, because you'll be judged with with greater something."
Yeah.
Something or other.
So I don't know if there's some like subconscious in that's kind of helped push, or maybe it's just been adds a motivation towards me being able to kind of do that deeper dive a little bit more. It's been very enriching, which has been very exciting and interesting.
Yeah, I always find that in study, you learn more than you're able to teach.
Yeah. Just
because you forget something as you're teaching, or you're learning something and you're still wrestling with it. Mm-hmm. So you don't really know how to address it, but then you work with it for a couple weeks. You're like, oh yeah, that really comes in. And as I've been trying to lead Bible studies for a year or so now. Like the first real one that I did, I don't know why anyone let me do this, but it was at my cousin's house. We did the entire book of Hebrews in one night. It was like 3 hours. It was like just 3 hours of me just reading and talking about Hebrews, which I love because Hebrews is great. I mean, Hebrews is a fantastic, and that was a year ago, and I didn't even scratch of what I understand now of Hebrews. I didn't even scratch the surface that night because it's such an amazing book, and there's so much to talk about.
Yeah,
and that was like the first one, and then I did Ephesians in one night with a different group of friends. I don't know why they let me do that either. That was a crazy night. Levi and Daniel know why that was a fun night. But yeah, and then I had an opportunity. I was invited by a friend of mine to give a Bible study. We talked about 1 John, how we should love one another in the church, and how we know our love for, or we know Christ's love for us by we loving other people. But so I've been trying to lead Bible studies for a while, and finally got to do this. But always you learn more than you can communicate.
Yeah.
And then I love going back and rereading my notes or re-listening to the study, just because I can be like, oh yeah, I understand that truth this much better now, because I've kind of wrestled with it. Yeah.
It's kind of been similar with the sitting on the same thing for like 2 years, and it continues to just expand and grow, and more understanding. And
I did that for, last, not this most recent, but like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I did this project through Revelation, all of spring break, or all of winter break, Revelation. Like, because I was like I was coming across a bunch of eschatology stuff, like Revelation interpretation stuff, like online, and people that I very much respected on two very different sides of the aisle, like premillennial, postmillennial, amillennial, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I got to dive in it. So I took like 2 weeks, just every single day. My friend Colin had just bought me this Bible, and I had just gotten a new computer from my parents. And so every single day I was watching sermons, I was listening to podcasts, I was reading Revelation. I had pages and pages of handwritten notes. We were in a cabin in like Tennessee or something. So it was all a whole bunch of time of just like in the Word, in the Scripture. And I finally came up with what I thought it's the way I described it was partial preterist, double fulfillment, typological, optimistic premillennialism is how I kind of describe my eschatology.
The words you mentioned earlier.
Which I do still think is correct, but also just like now a year or two later, I can look back and be like, I was so motivated, but also very naive 2 years ago. And now that I kind of sat with it, I realized it's probably not as huge of a deal as I was making it out to be, but also I appreciate what God did in those moments of like study. But studying or teaching and studying has always been great for me to just learn more. And it helps also because I want to be, doing apologetics and evangelism.
Yeah.
And the more you teach to Christians, the better you are at talking to non-Christians, right? The more you talk to other Christians, and this goes for anybody, talking to to regular Christians that you're brothers and sisters with really does help speak to non-Christians, because you can make an error speaking to a brother, and that's not as problematic as you tell something that's theologically incorrect to a non-believer, and then you mess that up for them.
That's accidentally saying Moses instead of Matthew.
Did you do that?
You did. There's a couple of times where I noticed you accidentally like mix up a name here or there.
Oh.
Or mix up like a small little thing, and it's like not that important, but it's just a little. I just kind of have a little chuckle over in my corner.
I feel called out. I don't notice that. I'm not even re-listening to the things. I don't notice that. That's interesting. I noticed the voice cracks though. The voice crack, like I had one tonight. It was bad. It's because I don't drink enough water. It's hard to drink water while you're teaching because it feels awkward.
It requires intentionality.
I need an alert on my watch to be like, okay, every 10 minutes you need to drink some water.
I can just throw water at you.
Yeah. You don't normally.
Well, I won't throw an open water bottle. That's rude.
But no, the voice cracks are kind of bad. I thought, once you grow a goatee, the voice cracks should go away. But it's like, it's especially humiliating.
Yeah.
When you have facial hair and your voice still messes up like a 12-year-old. It's bad. It's bad. Well, that ends the questions I had for you. I made a Facebook post about questions that anybody wanted us to kind of just talk about just for material, because we just couldn't really think. It was such short notice. We never really had anything to talk about. And I had one person. I can always count on him. It's my dad. He sent in a question. His reply I thought was actually really funny, but I don't have my phone. It's recording right now. So I'll just put it in the video. I'll screenshot it. But essentially the question was, everyone knows that we're descended from Adam. Now, I'll note that not everyone knows that, of course. Now, I understood the question. I won't share who it is, but I had someone that I'm very close with who was convinced that Adam and Eve are not the only humans that God created. He created Adam and Eve in the garden. He created other people around the world. And so I had discussion with that person, and it was a very fun discussion, although I think we very much disagreed. I think, yes, send him Adam. But anyway, that's a stupid side note. I just...
Funny enough, I had to have a similar conversation with someone else.
How'd you...
I couldn't. He was a little closed-minded, so it was we're going to table this for later and let it come with time.
So I'll be interested in knowing so obviously we both believe Adam and Eve are the only.
Yeah.
What was your way of like trying to persuade him?
Well, it was a more generalized discussion. I was not the only. It was a couple of us.
Was it a Christian or a non-Christian, or kind of just a mix?
He says.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
But I have uncertainties. But
sure,
that's a whole separate thing.
Close the door.
But that's a separate thing. But yeah, it was a more generalized conversation, and I was the only one in it, and that's all. That's a separate thing.
So the way that I kind of had this conversation is I made a point that if Adam and Eve weren't the only humans created,
yeah,
then that means not everyone's descended from Adam. But Romans says that through Adam all died, because we're dead in Adam through Adam's sin. Mm-hmm. But if not everyone was descended from Adam, they couldn't be dead in Adam's sin, because they're not in Adam. So I said, well, that means that we must all be from Adam. That was kind of the way that I went about that. Also, just the lack of the Bible saying anything else other than we come from Adam was kind of where we were at. But
Bible definitely, Bible would have had to have said something. And I know one of the main arguments I've seen, again, we're going on a tangent.
No, that's fine. That's what this is for.
Main arguments I know I've seen, or at least been aware of against, was like, oh, incest, you're not supposed to do incest and stuff. And it's like, I don't think, because like the main issue with like incest is the slow kind of degradation of the human genome and whatnot. Yeah. And the issues that can arise from like the propagation and continuation of some of those issues, and them continuing becoming worse. But back then the genome would have been fine. You wouldn't have to worry about that as much.
Yeah, second generation of people.
Adam and Eve definitely had more children than just 3 that were
For sure.
specifically listed, and
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, because even like, Abraham marries his stepsister. It's weird to think about, but he's like, yes, because he lies about. He's like, oh, Sarah's my sister, which technically is true because it's his dad's daughter, but it's a different mom. Like, we think, that's kind of gross. It's your stepsister. That's weird. Well, like, it's like incest is wrong because God says so, but he said so at a specific time in history.
Yeah.
That it was wrong. So the people before it, he was like, okay, that's fine. But now, because of what you're talking about, like the degradation of the gene pool, like, okay, now it's wrong. Don't do that. That's weird.
Well, there's issues at this point. Yeah.
Right. And then that becomes, because we know that it's wrong, it becomes a cultural stigma.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still wrong and a cultural stigma, but it wasn't. So Cain marrying his wife wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
For the second
generation. His wife? I think everyone tends to marry. Is
this what you're talking about? Yes. All right, I see. All right. Well, anyway, the question was, we know that we're descended from Adam, but because of the flood, we are all technically also descended from Noah. Because Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives then repopulated the earth, and my dad was like, well, why don't we typically think about that? Because it's true. We are all, in some sense, descended from Noah, and I think it's Ham, Japheth, and Shem. I think it's their name. Ham. Yeah, it's like Ham, Japheth, and Shem. It's 2 easy ones, and then one really like I don't know where Japheth. Like, name your kid Japheth.
Yeah.
CJ's fact
CJ,
checking.
look it up. Let's go.
Look it up, CJ.
Fact check.
But are we just gonna?
We're going for it now.
We're just going for it. Okay.
Why does it gives me time so long to flip to Genesis.
Gives me time to drink my Capri Sun.
Drink that juice bar.
Mountain, probably 12. Starting 12 and just kind of no, not 12. Hold up. 10. Go to 10. 10 is my best guess, and just kind of prod around there.
Earlier, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Yeah, Ham. Who names her kid Ham?
I got Ham. I got Ham.
Ham.
I said the wrong word.
That's like a ham sandwich right there.
Is there a footnote for what that means? What ham means? In your Bible?
In my NLT version, I don't think so.
Not in mine.
No? Oh, well, I don't know.
But it does say what territories they became.
Certainly, I can go pull it up, see what Bible app says, see if Bible app has something.
Anyway, I think the reason.
Anyway, no, we're committed to this.
Okay, now. Sorry.
My question is, why would someone name their kid Nimrod?
It's a great question.
Actually, probably wouldn't get that in that one. I gotta check the other.
But Nimrod was a mighty man, was he not?
A mighty man was he?
Like Nimrod, the mighty warrior before the Lord. I think that's what it says. I don't know. Sounds better. I'm telling you, Capri Sun, if we could land a sponsor for the Bible study, it would be, I don't know, the church, LSB Bibles, and Capri Sun. And Chips Ahoy. We haven't had Chips Ahoy in a while. Because my mom used to get those for us every single week. I haven't brought snacks in a while because we have a rack of snacks over here that the room provides. And the rule is that I made is like, okay, they're not ours. But if they're expired, they're fair game. Because we wouldn't want the little kids to eat expired food, of course. So we're doing them a service by taking the expired food and eating. Because Josiah came in here, it felt like $100 at the gas station on snack. You weren't here that week. He came in. It was him and some of the other guys, and they came in, and they had like just bags and bags of food.
Gosh.
And I was standing over here. So this is why I move around so I can remember these things. Yeah. I was standing over there, and I was like,
"The plates?
What?
Did you move the plates?
Plates?
The plates? Plates aren't there anymore. Oh, never mind.
Did I put the
There was
plates?
the smiley plates. Wait, where'd the smiley plates
Did I
go?
put them back after I moved them?
Where'd the smiley plates go?
I know that
There are smiley plates. You didn't put them back. You didn't put the smiley plates
that
back.
was
You're fired.
literally a month.
You're
ago. That was
fired.
literally a month ago.
The smiley plates.
No one noticed except for you. Except for you. But I'm over there, and I'm like, how much food did you get? And he's like, oh, a little bit. How much did you spend? He's like, $60. I was like, $60.
Gosh.
I'm like, what? But yeah, I haven't brought snacks in a while. I don't know if I ever will. Because like, what ends up
Done bringing.
Because what ends up happening is we bring the snacks and we set them down, and then the next
Disappear.
20 minutes is just people eating, and it's two people, we all know who, taking the entire box of cookies, and they don't clean up their mess, and then they don't participate in the actual study part.
And play block last.
They split block the entire time, and then they ask, but they do ask questions though.
Yeah, some good. They have interesting questions.
Interesting questions. Speaking of questions,
We should probably go back.
We should
to
probably go back to
never
what we were
actually
talking
finished
about.
Answering.
I think the reason we don't think of Noah being our closest common ancestor is
Not our closest. There's probably closer, but a full everybody common
Sure.
ancestor.
is probably because one, the culture is pretty biblically illiterate, so the culture is going to latch on to Adam and Eve and not necessarily Noah. Two, there is a disagreement in whether the flood was local to the Mesopotamia area or if it was global, and I think it's obviously global.
There is plenty of evidence towards that.
I think that explains the fossil record, but also just the biblical record of like, well, how did it destroy the world if it was only a local flood? And why do you need two of every animal if it's only a local? You know what I mean? So I think it's a global flood.
I'm gonna not go into the science that I know there's different things with like granite on underneath certain oceans and the salt, I think it is, under other oceans, which there's some very interesting theories out there, which is worth understanding. They are theories. We have obviously not witnessed it, but they're very interesting. And there's a lot of things that it would make sense.
You know, I had a question. I was kind of thinking about this with my friend, with Colin.
Okay.
And I was like, you know, people will say like the Native Americans traveled the land bridge because they were like billions, like millions of years ago. Because they were like, what do you call like not humans who were ancient humans? Something like
not real.
Yeah, not real. Correct. They'd be like, oh, they were these people who like millions of years ago during the Ice Age, Neanderthals.
Yeah.
Traveled over and they interbred and created like humans or something like that. Some stupid evolution stuff. And I was like, okay. But if obviously the global flood is true, are you a 6,000 year creationist?
I know of evidence towards both. I've not done adequate research to have a full opinion. I think I've leaned towards an old Earth theory.
Old Earth. When an atheist asks me, I just tell him, no, I'm a 2,000-year-old Earth because Jesus lived 2,000 years ago and he's God. So he has to just to make fun of, just like troll him a little bit. But I lean young Earth, I think, but I don't really care.
That's,
you know what I mean?
Those discussions. That's one I say every now. Those discussions are wonderful, and I love to have them. They're really interesting.
Yeah,
but they're not the main goal.
Yeah,
the commandment we were given was to go and make disciples. Not, hey, go figure out how God split the world in pieces and flooded it,
right?
Or like made it like we won't understand. That's
right.
Yeah. That's for God to know, as CJ just said.
I agree. But
whispered.
Well, I lean young Earth just because I like spiting Bill Nye. you know, because have you seen the video where Bill Nye tours the Ark Encounter? Which have you been to the Ark Encounter?
I have been.
I went when I was really young.
Bits in there that I don't like.
Really?
But there's a couple different displays that are like the one that mainly comes to mind is like, how did the animals cross the ocean? Well, logs. No, Like they barely cover it, and it's such like an out there theory. There's a couple. The overall it's great, but there's a couple bits that's like, have some more evidence if you're going to put something up, not put up random what effectively amounts to nonsense. Because especially if you're trying to convince an atheist or someone who's going to be skeptical, you have to be all that more aware of what you're going to put up.
I didn't catch any of that.
So there is
no. When I was there, I meant.
Oh, okay.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
I understood everything you just said. Just like when I was there, I didn't notice. I was trying to figure out why the writing wasn't in English, because they created their own like Noah language.
Oh, some of that as well could be odd, but
I think that's more accurate, probably.
Well,
I think Noah had a written language.
Yeah, well, it's.
I think Adam and Eve
they
could have had
fill in a lot of information that we don't know for a fact. Which, to be fair, like it's stuff that makes sense and it's really cool to think about, but it's just worth understanding. We weren't there; we don't know,
right?
And just to think about,
yeah.
Although some of the technology things that they've thought about with like how it would work is like the vent system.
Vent system?
Yeah,
in the Ark.
Yeah.
Sad. I was like 8.
Okay,
I don't remember.
Because I had to pump fresh air in and there
10.
No.
Well, you could just like poke holes in the side of the Ark that was above the water.
No.
The air would just. I don't know.
So
Is that how that works?
The theory they had was essentially like as the boat moves up and down, it'll like have water go up, and then through a diode, I think it's called. It will go through in, but then it'll like close, so it won't come back out, and it'll help push through and circulate air throughout, just to keep fresh air and poop stink a little less prevalent.
Sounds legit.
They have interesting theories, and they're cool.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Something about Noah, but
tangents.
Yeah, I think the culture latches on to Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And is like, fine. And then as Christians,
just doesn't matter to us. And like I've thought about it and I've noticed it, but it's like, okay, that's interesting. Move on.
The story of the flood being as early as it in the book of Genesis. What did I say?
I prefer
the account of the flood. Yeah, the account of the
language. I can get a little linguistical on that.
Sure, I feel
language.
The record of the flood in Genesis being as early as it is, we kind of just forget about it because you have the flood, which takes up 3 or 4 chapters. Then you have Tower of Babel, which is like 20 verses.
Yeah,
and then you just have
the next chapter.
Then you just have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and Joseph is like 14 chapters.
Yeah.
Holy, Joseph is long.
Which, I mean, honestly, then also kind of points towards just, while it's really interesting to think about, and probably occupied a easy, like, a solid chunk of time, even in, like, newer theories. It definitely occupied a solid chunk of time that such little at 10 verses, 15 verses, like, of all of that, compared to the whole rest of it, all the other Bibles, all the other books and everything, just shows what does our focus really need to be on.
Yeah,
there's a whole lot other to focus on. Because
the flood gets brought up like one more time in the New Testament, and it's in 2 Peter, and he's like, or it's in 1 Peter. He's like, the flood is a type of baptism where the ark is Christ, and you get in the ark, and the flood waters purify the world of sin, and if you're in the ark, you're saved. So when you're baptized, the waters purify sin, and you're in Jesus, and so you're. That's not doing the text any kind of justice.
Okay,
I had to think about the text for a while because I mean we're pretty much Baptist. Let's be real. In our theology, we're pretty much Baptist, and so obviously we don't believe in like infant baptism, and so we don't think that baptism saves like infant Baptist believes it. But Peter does say baptism saves you. So you have to think of what that means, and I did a whole thing thinking about that. But anyway, I don't think we think about the flood very much, just because it's not of the utmost importance. It's like you're not gonna have eternal life based on your position on the flood.
Yeah.
Now the historicity of the resurrection Yes. And I think there's a very good reason that God gave us a lot better evidence. Not that there isn't good evidence for the flood, but a lot better evidence for the resurrection of Jesus than for the flood. And
Well, it's more recent. You're going to have better evidence.
well, that's true. That's true. But also just even in the text of the New Testament, I mean, you have 27 books that are about the resurrection of Jesus, basically.
Yeah, that too.
And you have 4 chapters that are about the flood, plus 16 verses in First Peter.
Mm.
You know, so it's just like, what are we weighing here? Someone like, I'm not an evolutionist, of course. I don't know where you would fall on that.
Definitely not
Yeah.
evolutionist.
So, well, like someone,
Discussion might have led towards that.
what?
Just the discussion.
Well, I
might
was
have
assuming not.
encouraged-
I was 98% sure not.
Where'd the 2% come
Well,
from?
because you're old Earth, you lean old Earth. So I was just wondering. So you're just a gap theory, like the days are just ages.
Yeah, well, the way older, as I said, I don't know all the details. There's a few different things. Like, actually, I think time dilation is new Earth, or not time dilation. Light is slow. So one of the things, the new Earth, that I find really that was really interesting. It's a theory. Clarify, it's a theory, and I don't know the details, so I could be getting this horribly wrong. But light is slowing down over time. It's it's like a logarithmic line. So in theory, eventually it will stop, or will effectively have stopped. But I suspect the world will have long ended by then.
If you trace it back, you can figure out how old the light is. What? Sorry, I'm not dude, science, dude. I'm sorry.
I'm like, yeah, and that's how we find out to prove that we're trillions of billions of years old. Anyway, where light used to be like way faster, which then with like a bunch of light coming in and like way more, I guess, bombarding and stuff. I don't know. Again, I don't know the details, but with a lot more light and stuff, things will like move faster. So like trees that weren't there will grow into like ancient forests and whatnot. And so the light kind of accelerated things, so to say.
That sounds like a young Earth kind of thing.
That is a young Earth theory, yes.
I would just say God just made the forests.
Well, it's...
Or are you talking about the regrowth after the flood? Because that would need to happen. You have to regrow all the trees.
Potentially part of the regrowth. Well, but no, that's more of a creation theory.
Huh.
Of kind of... Because that's the thing. Science and the Bible and Christianity are not mutually exclusive. They are together. And for many... centuries, they were together.
Yeah.
Almost too much so. Thank you, geocentric people. That history.
Well, if you think about it, in Newtonian terms, the Earth is the center of the solar system. You just reshape it so that the sun orbits the Earth and the other planets, which is obviously not true. Like, technically, it's not true, but also technically, it is true.
That's fine.
If you think about it, you can.
I'm gonna not try and think about that.
You can't. Like, technically,
maybe. But
like,
yeah.
Am I punching the flower, or is the flower punching me?
Depending on how you want to look at that. That's Newton's second law, I think.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, bro.
Yeah, that's...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because then a lot of like the evolution and stuff was, at least as far as I've understood, with some almost rumors, I would say. It's, again, nothing I've personally proven, was like evolution and stuff was done with the specific intent to get Bible and God out of science, which that's not what it is. And then that has then pervaded, that has continued into the modern day, where they have become mutually exclusive and not the same, but they are just, not some of the theories that can try to get provoked and pointed, that then are various logical fallacies. And there are some flaws in some of even biological, biblical and theological type science as well. But that's just exactly what it is. It's theories. Yeah,
I think what ends up happening is the same way that the culture kind of hears the word Christian and has a certain idea of what that means. Like stuck up, snotty, like, some legalistic types
tend to be,
sometimes. They hear the word science and they immediately think, okay, evolution, old Earth, stuff like that. which
millions and millions of years.
yeah, science doesn't mean that. Science just means collecting information about the world. Like it's like natural science, physical science, collecting information about the world.
Yeah.
So of course, science and the Bible don't contradict because you collect information about the world. Depending on how you interpret that information, you can make it line up with Scripture, or you can make it not, and it's just how you interpret. It's in my opinion, as much as I'd consider myself a theologian more than a scientist, certainly, but it's the same way that I would have a debate about, okay, what does this verse mean? Does it you interpret it this way? You know, you interpret a certain passage the way that a Roman Catholic or a Lutheran or a Calvinist or whatever, like you interpret scientific data that way too.
Which is where then you have a lot of importance into look into the context. Look for contradictions and things like that to make sure that you're look for contradictions in your own belief and then correct them, almost question and make sure you kind of understand, and which is both biblical with look at different verses, look in history. You've got even in your like scientific of looking in creation and things like that. You kind of look for and try and look as the big picture and with the context to try and guide towards the right answer, even though we may never fully understand.
Yeah, and the big thing of like modern like institutional scientific theory is like they're stealing from Christianity. Like the Big Bang is a Christian theory. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because it's an old Earth theory. Because it's like the idea, but people rejected it. Like, oh no, you can't have spontaneous creation. That's too biblical. It's too theistic. And now it's the pervasive atheistic scientific theories. Like, oh, where did the world come from? Oh, it's the Big Bang. Okay, well, what happened? What caused the Big Bang? Oh, we don't know. Right. But even just like the process of doing science, and this is where I love to get into, is like I'm a hardcore presuppositionalist, like presuppositional apologist. Which what you do is you take, where like someone might be called a classicalist or an evidentialist. They say, okay, let's look at all of the outstanding evidence for the resurrection of Jesus or for this biblical event, or like let's look at how creation proves the creator, that kind of stuff. Presuppositionalism just says, look, certain things are true, and those things can only be true if the Bible is true, God is God, and Jesus is the Savior. So we would say like the only way that you can actually trust your own mind and trust the laws of logic is if your mind was created to perform laws of logic, and if the laws of logic are consistent. And the only way those three things can be true is if God exists and if the Bible is true, because the Bible predicts those things to be true. That's kind of the way. So people are like, well, we can observe, which you can't observe evolution, but we can observe evolution, run tests. Okay, well, why do you trust that your brain interprets data correctly? Well, because I'm a rational being. Well, how do you know you're a rational being? Well, I just have to presuppose it. Okay, well, the only way to logically presuppose your own rationality is to also presuppose that God exists to have given you that rationality. Because if you're just an evolved monkey brain, monkey know no evolution. Monkeys don't know evolution happens. So why would you? It's kind of, I would just love talking to people like that, but yeah. Well, I think that's a good.
That's just a lot of big words. I'm just like,
sorry. Anyway,
Anyway, we went on for a good minute.
Yeah, successful first episode. We'll have to do this again.
Remain on the main part of the question.
Yeah, we like hit that like 3-4 times.
I think we answered it. I think we answered it enough. I think
we answered enough, but
it took a few tries.
Yeah, I think
that's how you know it was a good conversation.
Yeah, for sure. But what should I title this? David, Noah, and Evolution. That's what I'm titling the Logos Podcast Episode 1. David, Noah, and Evolution.
It works.
Yeah, that works.
And rambling.
Small print. Test run.
Yeah, test run.
Test run.
Well, I think it was so good we don't even say it's test run. We're just
Well, it might kind of be in the video.
Well, we said in the video that it was a test run.
Yeah.
We're going to title it that, though.
That's right.
Because then you click on a video, it's like, oh, it's a test run. Oh,
yeah.
It's a test run.
Doesn't matter.
No, I should put masterpiece.
Masterpiece.
Cinema.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Absolute cinema.
Joe Rogan? No. No. Logos podcast. That's
And
where it's
YouTube Shorts with the GTA cars underneath. That's
at.
us
How am I
now.
going to make this into a short? It's not going to vertically format very well at all.
Oh no, not at all.
Minecraft parkour. Let's go.
Dude.